unstable Nepal a concern for India? Ex-Nepal Chief Justice to lead nation. What Nepal regime change means for India. Top focus on NewsTrack with Marya, Shakil.
Good evening, this is the NewsTrack and I'm Marya, Shakil. Nepal may be a small neighbor, but its unrest carries outsized consequences for India. The open border of more than 1,700 kilometers means that instability in Kathmandu is never confined within Nepal's frontiers. It spills over into multiple states in India which share their boundary with Nepal. For India, the strategic challenge is clear. Every crisis in Nepal becomes an opportunity for China, whose investments and outreach in recent years have grown sharper and more political. It is a test for India's neighborhood policy at large, whether New Delhi can offer support without interference, reassurance without dominance, and strategic clarity without losing sight of the people-to-people bond that underpins this relationship. So tonight on NewsTrack, we decode what Nepal's instability means for India's strategic calculus. First up the story, and then I bring in the guests.
Normalcy is slowly returning to Nepal after violent clashes left the country shaken. Streets that saw anger and arson are quieter today, but the underlying discontent with the political class remains unresolved. For India, this episode is a reminder that Nepal's turbulence is not just a neighbor's affair, it has direct implications across the border. Each crisis in South Asia has a way of spilling over, testing India's diplomatic bandwidth and regional influence. Afghanistan remains under Taliban rule. Sri Lanka is still nursing the wounds of its economic collapse. Bangladesh is gripped by political unrest. And now, New Delhi finds Kathmandu caught in freshly instability. But beyond the immediate unrest, there is a deeper political undercurrent taking shape. Amid growing buzz around Nepal's former Chief Justice Sushila Karki as the interim leader pick among Gen Z, another name is also gaining traction. The rise of Balendra Shah, Kathmandu's 35-year-old firebrand mayor, is being watched closely. Shah, a rapper turned politician, has built his appeal on raw populism among Nepal's youth. He even installed a map of Greater Nepal in his office in an apparent counter to the mural interpreted as Akhand Bharat or Unified India installed in the new Parliament complex in Delhi. The possibility of Shah emerging as a national force raises questions for New Delhi. Could he become another Yunus in the wings, a leader propelled by anti-India sentiment, altering the trajectory of bilateral ties? For India, its neighborhood is part of a larger pattern, an arc, where every shift has consequences for New Delhi's security, economy and influence. Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me first on the show is Lieutenant General Ata Hasnain. We also have former diplomat Veena Sikri. General Hasnain, beginning with you, how do you assess the strategic implications of the current unrest in Nepal, particularly regarding India's security and regional stability?
Marya, thank you very much for inviting me for your program. Let's get into it straight away. Any region, you need stability to make progress. Without stability, you will always find turbulence spilling over into our territory, and everyone knows the nature of the South Asian subcontinent. It is essentially Indo-centric. That's a term I learned a long time ago, basically catering for the fact that we have populations spreading on either side of the border, similar populations in all the regional countries which exist in our area. And so Nepal is a very, very important country. But we've been experiencing, for example, Sri Lanka 2022, 2024 Bangladesh, on which Mrs. Shakil will speak much more after this, 5th of August, that happened. And this particular incident, the last 2 days in particular, actually has shocked most of us because it's come really out of the blue, completely unprepared. So in Bangladesh, we still had some kind of indicators to say, okay, there was an issue of democracy, there was an issue of pushback by those who were not happy with the fact that in elections parties had been banned twice or thrice. Here it was something out of the blue suddenly. And to that extent, also the levels of violence which have been seen here, it seems that a deep amount of preparation had probably been gone into. They chose their targets extremely well. This is all classically from any political scientist's point of view, how a revolution must, progress in a given frame of time. That's exactly what we are seeing in Kathmandu in the last 2 days. So it's worrisome because we haven't seen the end of it yet. It's still going to progress further. The army doesn't seem to be completely in control. On the first day, I would have expected that the police may have run away, but the army should have been much better in control, but they were not. And it seems that that's a very awkward kind of a thing which we are looking at the moment.
Okay, General Asnan, is there a risk of external actors perhaps using this unrest to further destabilize in Nepal, and how should India then respond strategically in the short and long term?
See, Marya, we are moving through such awkward times. I needn't even have to reiterate that. We know that there are eyes from different parts of the world which are impinging on India. No one wants to see India progress the manner in which we have progressed in the last 10, 12, 15 years. And therefore, any such opportunity, we saw it in Bangladesh. You see the manner in which Pakistan moved in immediately. The exploitation by the ISI, a level of exploitation by the Chinese. Everywhere we have been witness to it. Here, early yet to say what may happen. But obviously, when there is turmoil, when there is instability of this kind, then everyone's eyes are on it to see the opportunities which can arise. And therefore, we would be naive to deny that this kind of a thing cannot happen here.
And before I let you go, General Asnan, a word on the close association that has been there between the two armies, the Nepalese army and the Indian army.
Yes, it starts from the fact that every time we have a chief of the army staff in India appointed, the first country that he visits is invariably Nepal. He always goes there and he is anointed virtually by the Nepalese government, the head of state of Nepal, and with a honorary generalship of their country too. And this is something which is similarly done in India for a chief of the Nepalese army. So this is a very close relationship. Besides that, it extends into the fact that we have, a very large number of more than 40 units of the Gurkha rifles in the Indian Army, different types of Gurkha rifles in the Indian Army, some of the best recognized soldiers from all over the world who are reputed all over the world. So this is a very deep relationship which goes on here. Unfortunately, I hope that it does not happen. This should not act as some kind of a measure by which there is a cleavage in this kind of a relationship, because it is this relationship which withstands all the pressures which may come on the future of Indo-Nepal relations.
All right. General Asnan, thank you for joining us. Let me introduce other guests who are joining us as well. Rose Kandel is economist and activist joining us from Kathmandu. We have Dr. Sarthak Nepal, who is an eyewitness and an orthopedic surgeon. and SD Muni is an author. Ambassador Sikri, what are the major diplomatic challenges that you're seeing right now, particularly with almost a consensus of sort emerging with regards to former Chief Justice of Nepalese Supreme Court, that is Sushila Karki. She's, of course, the first woman CJI of Nepal. And her stand vis-a-vis India is still not clear. You know, unlike, Balendra Shah, who was seen as an anti-India voice, we do not know the political thought or leaning of Justice Karki.
First of all, I think that we have to say that the situation in Nepal is certainly very worrisome for India. And even in the 48 hours that we have seen the situation, go to this high stage, strong parallels are being drawn between what happened in Bangladesh a year ago and what has happened in Nepal in the last 48 hours. And I think that this is a very worrisome factor for India. You just spoke about, Balendra Shah and him being, for the last 24 hours, his name was being talked about. And he was, as you said correctly, known to be very anti-Indian and also have a map in his office of this, what they call the Greater Nepal. Parts of Himachal Pradesh and so on for Nepal, just as the people in Bangladesh have also shown this. And I think the parallel between the kind of organization that has been in many ways spearheading this traumatic movement, and also what happened in Bangladesh. These are organizations with no known leader, although we know what is behind them, but there is no known leader, and they just come up out of nowhere. They're obviously well trained, they have beautiful websites, and they have detailed instructions on their website, very often in English, on what is to be done, who has to come. In fact, yesterday, for example, there were many people, school children in uniforms there, to make sure that nobody would shoot on them. So I think this is the question of external forces being involved is a very strong one, and certainly for India this is very worrisome. But I must say that in in Nepal, the Chief of Army Staff has now taken control.
That's right.
There was a time yesterday, right till the late evening, when it did not look at all that there would be any kind of control, and the situation was extremely volatile, the kind of vandalism, the kind of looting, and of course the Gen Z group, the Hami Nepal group, the Gen Z Nepal group, these groups which were being talked about as being the leaderless organizations that are guiding this event, were then overtaken also or joined also by other vandalizers. And the army in the beginning was stepping back, but then suddenly the army chief, I think you're quite right about the good relations that General Atar Hussain spoke about between the Indian army and the Nepal army, and the army chief made a statement late last night, which was released to the public, which indicated their determination to control the situation.
Yes,
that had a great sense of
absolutely.
On the thing, and I think that is what has changed the situation in Nepal, unlike in Bangladesh. And I think that today the decision by the Gen Z themselves, they have a big meeting with about 7,000 people present, and there was some kind of a balloting on the mobile phone for this, and they have chosen Sushila Karki, which I think is a very sensible position.
So let's get a word on Sushila Karki from SD Muni as well. SD Muni, historically, how does this unrest reflect the long-standing complexities in India-Nepal relations, and what shift are you sensing in the entire South Asia do you foresee in the coming few days and months?
Well, I think there are 2-3 questions you have lumped together. To begin with, Sushila Karki is a very independent-minded, objective, and courageous justice. She proved herself to be. She took positions against the government. She took positions which were very independent. And I think her maturity at a mature age, as compared to the youthful rashness which you see in Balendra Shah, he is also very popular. He is also independent. He has also been critical of the government. But there is an element of rashness in the solutions which he supported. At one stage, he even said that Singh Darbar is so corrupt that it should be put to flame. And, these are kind of extreme. So I think, personally, Nepalese would prefer, the mature Nepalese would prefer Sushila Karki, and I think she's a good candidate. Now, so far as the regional situation is concerned, the focus is on three changes which have taken place in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and in Nepal. There are few similarities between them. One is, of course, the spontaneous rising of people, mostly led by the young people. In Sri Lanka, it was JVP in Bangladesh. That is one thing. Secondly, ouster of what is being perceived as the pro-China regimes. Because in Bangladesh, for us, Hasina was not a pro-China, but from American perspective, it was a pro-China regime. In Sri Lanka, Rajapakshas were pro-China regime, and Oli is being considered as pro-China regime. So this is another similarity which is very much there. Now, violence took place in all the three situations, but maximum violence has taken place in Nepal. And this is where Nepal has gone much ahead of Bangladesh in terms of destruction of republican systems, republican icons, and all that. So, this being there, there is a natural tendency to suspect that there is no doubt that the basic foundation of uprising in Nepal is local, is national. It was disappointment and frustration vis-a-vis the government, corruption, inefficiency, nepotism, whatever you call it. But that fire has been fueled by vested interest from outside is a possibility you cannot rule out. I'm not saying we don't have an evidence, concrete evidence, but this is something which you cannot rule out, and that is visible in the pattern in South Asia, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka as well.
Okay. Dr. Sarthak, as someone who is there on ground in Kathmandu, what is the general sense like? That is this normalcy or some return to normalcy? Can you say that right now?
Actually, the army has now taken over yesterday and 10 p.m. and the curfew is in place at the present as well. And at the moment, there's no protest happening, and everything is under control of Nepalese army, and they have done it in a very
so are the
nicer way
shops
and in
open?
a very
What about
commendable way.
the hospitals, emergency services?
Hospitals are open, yeah. Yeah, even in the time of crisis, the hospitals were all open. We did operations in the patients who came in the emergency department as soon as possible, and the shops are opened in the early morning and in the in the evening as well, so that we could gather some goods and eat in our home as well. So I think situation is coming into control, but I think the most important thing is to have an interim government and to have a president or the prime minister who will help us to lead forward and get the election in as soon as possible in about 6 to 12 months time.
Yes.
That is, I think,
And
the most
Sarthak,
important thing at the moment.
Initially started as a Gen Z protest, had a lot of commoners and citizens of Nepal joining in. So it became a citizens' protest, not only led by a particular demographic, which was, of course, in a particular age bracket. For someone like you, is this name, Justice Sushila Karki, is that a favorable name? Do you also extend support to someone like her?
Of course, our Chief Justice, ex-Chief Justice Sushila Karki is very good. She has done a commendable job during her tenure as well, and she is seen as one of the potential leader. But I would say the Gen Z community has also come up with Balendra Shah, who is an excellent mayor for us at the moment in Kathmandu. He has done a commendable job, and he has led to a lot of he has helped Kathmandu in prospering in a lot of aspects, in culture, in building of things and everything. He's a young youth, and he comes in our generation, the millennial generation, though not Gen Z, but I think he is a good candidate as well. But according to knowledge of the law and order and everything, Susila Karki is a good candidate
Okay.
as well.
Let
But
me bring in Rose
we'll
now.
have to see how things turn.
Rose, this is a question to an economist in you. Is Nepal's economic relationship with India now sustainable amidst this crisis, or is there a noticeable, perhaps a pivot towards China by local actors?
After this protest, I think before this protest, all of our diplomatic ties have been, India has been treated as one of our best friends and our neighboring country who have supported us in enduring times and who, we've often looked up to. So I don't believe that there will be any form of changes in terms of diplomacy. I believe that what's been happening historically in Nepal will be repeated. However, given the crisis, I do think it might halt. I believe it's obvious math to given the situation of the crisis, things will be halted for a while. I don't believe that it would be halted just for India. I think it would be halted for every single country, given the constraint in the resources and the pause in economic activity post this protest.
So you are sensing business as usual after the protests end and there is an interim government in place?
Yes, after the meeting today with Gen Z protesters and activists, we have come to a consensus to put Ms. Karki as our interim leader, who I believe will take the diplomacy ties that we have been working with for decades with India, and I don't sense any sort of differences based on the leadership itself.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Rose, Kandil, Ambassador Sikri, Dr. Sarthak and SD Muni on this broadcast. Of course, this is a developing situation in Nepal, a story we'll continue to track very, very closely. That's all from me on this edition of the News Track. Thanks so much for watching.